Want to welcome everybody to today's webinar. We're going to talk about how to get started as an Amazon seller in the new year. We're going to talk about all the things that you need to know to be able to help you decide whether you want to go forward in this business or not. We're going to talk about what it's like and what to expect as an Amazon seller. What are some of the best strategies to use to launch your business? Talk about what's working now, and then ultimately what mistakes to avoid. So let's jump right in, get started. And in specific, what we're going to cover today is we're going to talk about what Amazon FBA private label selling is versus some of the other things. We're going to talk about it in the form of a comparison of arbitrage and then private label selling. Go into specifically what it takes to get started, what I went through and some of my costs are. A lot of people have questions about what it's like to deal with a Chinese supplier, so we're going to address that. We're going to talk about the competition levels on Amazon. And then some of the mistakes that I think people commonly make, some things that I have made, mistakes I've made, and if you can avoid those, how much better off you'll be. And then where I think things are going as far as an Amazon seller and really what you should expect into the coming year. And if you want to get started in that, we're going to talk about a little bit easier way to get going after that, and then question and answers. For those of you who don't know me, I am a full-time private label merchant. I have been a private label merchant for, 2.5 decades. And it seems like it's when I got started in the corporate world, I actually got a pretty good job out of college. But in reality, when you're 22 and you're telling 40 and 50-year-olds how to run their business, they really don't appreciate that very much. So I found out pretty quickly I was much better suited at making the rules and following them. So I started out and opened a clothing store and went from there. I've actually built up and sold 6 different businesses, but turned that clothing store into 4 clothing stores and back in malls when people used to go in malls. I actually had a car bumper factory and a winery, but all of these businesses have had to do something with creating or having to do with private label merchandise. So probably not a whole lot of people around who have seen the variety of things I've seen in the private label industry. Currently I'm a full-time Amazon private label seller, and I'm also the creator of a very, very popular course on selling Amazon called FBA Head Start course. I do all types of coaching for people, both individually within group programs. We do all kinds of podcasts and videos and different things on that. And that's probably how a lot of you found me. But also take people on buying trips to Canton and do that twice a year. We just got back in October, taking another trip in China. That's certainly a lot of fun. But basically, my day is full or filled with everything having to do with Amazon private label. So that's the gist of who I am and just a quick nickel tour. Live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Went to NC State. For those of you who follow college sports and are here in the United States. So NC State, they haven't been very good in football or basketball lately. So it takes a real fan to support that. But hope springs eternal, I guess. But a little bit of background to me, and let's just kind of jump in and just talk about some stuff. Let's go in and talk about the options you have of starting an Amazon private label business or an Amazon business, an Amazon seller business. Maybe is a better way to phrase it. The first and easiest way probably to get started is something called arbitrage. And the word arbitrage itself simply means buying something in one market for a lower price and then taking it to another market and selling it for a higher price. You'll still see that go on today in a lot of financial markets where maybe you go find gold at a certain price and you turn around and you buy it and then you sell it in another place. But arbitrage has been going on since really the beginning of time. And it's something that in Amazon terminology, it's where you go into a big box store here in the U.S., and I'm sure there are comparable things in Europe, New Zealand, some of the other places people have are here from. But you go in and you find things that are on closeout. You go buy those, you send them to Amazon, you sell them for a higher price. The hard part of that is that there's also other people trying to sell those same items. So you're constantly fighting for the sales page to be able to sell your items. If you're not listed as the main seller, you're in that section on the bottom right that says sold by other sellers. And it's a combination of seller reviews or seller feedback, I guess, and a combination of pricing, and it's hard to get the buy box. The other side of that coin is that it can be a job in many ways, where you go in on a Monday, you go to Walmart, Tuesday, you go to Target, and you buy all the closeouts, and really you're going through almost a route type of scenario, and when you stop working, you stop making money. Now, it is something that we, in our very basic sense, understand. It's buy low, sell high. And there are people who do make money in that, but I don't know how many students I've had coming to the Head Start program who started out in arbitrage and just got tired of it. The other way you can sell as an Amazon seller is FBM, which stands for Fulfilled by Merchant. If you already have an existing e-commerce business or even a brick and mortar store and you want to use Amazon simply as a sales channel to where you list your items on Amazon, people buy them and then you send them out yourself. You'll get charged like a 15% sales commission by Amazon to sell your products, and then you take care of the shipping and the cost and everything off of that. I think that can work in a very limited amount of cases, but to me, I much prefer fulfilled by merchant because it's all passive. Literally what you do is you find a product, most likely from a Chinese supplier. You put your label on it, you turn it into a private label product, and private labeling has been going on since the beginning time as well. For those of you who have an iPhone, that was made in China and private labeled by Apple. It's been done with computers forever and all different types of products. Where I live here in North Carolina, up until 20, 25 years ago, a lot of the textiles and furniture of the whole world was made here. But as time has gone on, the production has been shifted to Asia, and then the management and so forth is still done here. So in essence, they're private labeling the furniture that you probably have in your house. And that goes on in every industry. But what makes FBA so nice now is that used to, the factories are only there to make bigger, larger quantities for, quote, name brand, very, very large type of companies. But as China has become more progressive and more open, there are more and more factories out that will make quantities that you and I as Amazon sellers can actually afford to purchase and make it worthwhile to be able to do that. So you get your item private labeled, you send it to Amazon, you list it on Amazon, and we've all been Amazon customers, you know the process. But then somebody buys your product, and then ultimately you get a percentage of that sale after Amazon takes their fees. And the leftover profit, they're going to take that same 15% sales commission you get as a merchant, but they're also going to take roughly 15% for their handling and shipping and customer service and all the other things. The beauty of all this is they handle everything. So from somebody who had clothing stores and had to sign leases and have employees and all the other long hours and different things that go involved in that, I hope to make 10% off of my sales. Here, you can literally clear 40, 50% of your sales while you're working at your home office behind your computer screen. So I don't know if I value it more than most because I did things old school ways and did it the hard way. But for those of you who are considering, I don't think there's really any option when it comes down to the three types of ways to do it. I am fully convinced that FBA is the greatest thing for the individual merchant that you can ever have, because that percentage you pay Amazon, you couldn't do those same services for that same cost. So it's very, very easy. The typical margins on products of this are, anywhere from 35 to 60%, usually 40 to 50 is a good range. And then of course, times the quantity of sales that you're getting. So if you're looking at that, that's really kind of the difference of the three. A lot of times when you're looking at this, you'll see a lot of videos on YouTube or maybe read certain people's blog posts where they'll come out and say, you too can make $50,000 a month. And I look at all those things and I shake my head. And actually, I have met some people, if you believe them, and I do, a few people who have actually done things like that and built their business very, very quickly like that. They are very, very rare. They don't happen. They don't come along very often. And what they're not telling you is that they have large email lists, large Facebook pages, an established business somehow where they can just shift their business to Amazon from whatever they're doing. It is possible, but for most of us, it's not probable. It's highly unlikely you're going to be able to grow that quickly, that fast. However, if you're looking at a way to build your business and then be able to scale it up and have it be all semi-passive, then FBA is still a wonderful way to go. Instead of trying to go for that 50 grand a month, I just kind of think it's a better idea to find a product that is, for lack of a better word, low-hanging fruit that you can then take and get it listed on Amazon, get it private label listed on Amazon, and maybe try and make $1,000 a month. Maybe you'll be on spot 7 or on the page or spot 8. You still can make money because the true value here is you have an experience and the knowledge and the skill of going through the learning curve. Once you're able to do that, then you're able to scale up to about any level that you want. I have people in my programs who have gone from 0 to 6 figures in 6 months and well beyond. I've had people who have made several $1,000s on their first products. And obviously not everybody does that. But if you do things the right way and you pick the right product and market and start out slow, all it really takes is introducing a few products and you can get to $10,000 a month within a relatively short time. So keep in mind, if you're going to do this, realize this is a, quote, real business. It's a physical product. Nothing is easy. This is no exception, but I think it's very, very doable. So between all three different types of things, ultimately your results are dependent on what you do. But before we go any farther, I just want you to know before you decide to go into the type of or into the Amazon business, the three types, and ultimately I think it's best for you to decide what works the best for you. For me, when I got started, it took me less than 20 hours to get my first product listed from the time I started. And I literally got going for very inexpensive amounts of money. It was $400. I think my first product was 80 cents, and it was 80 cents for shipping, so $1.60 total, and I bought 250 pieces, which is $400. And then I listed it for $12.99 retail. But between all the Amazon fees and everything else, I don't remember now, but I want to think it was like 52% gross margin. So roughly, I'm making half of that on every sale. And it took me less than a month to the first sales. I did some promotions and some different things there the first month. And then also was able to cover just with the sales, the natural organic sales, I was able to cover that $400, make $700 the second month. And this is profit, not sales. And then $1,000 the third. And then I've gone on and done other products, but I had achieved lots of different first page listings and top 3 rankings on multiple keywords. And I didn't have any Facebook group or anything to market to. By month 3, as I said, I've created some other products and I've gone on to do some things then. But I think the thing too, that a lot of people don't think about when you're trying to consider starting an Amazon private label business is this is not just the arbitrage model where you sell that day and it's gone. This is something where if you build a brand and you have 4, 5, 6 products in your brand, then you've got a tangible, sellable asset. I did a live event had my live event in Florida in September, I think it was. And we actually had 3 people there who, for lack of a better word, were investment bankers. What they were trying to do was find people who had established brands that they could purchase and then be able to build their own portfolio asset, if you will, of Amazon brands. And that's what's really coming down the road is that as the industry matures, there are going to be people who come in with money and want to buy successful brands. That happens in every industry, and this will be no different. So that's kind of how I got started. And for me, the beauty of this is no business is, even if you have a stock or a bond, you still have to check those every now and then. I do spend some time each day checking my reports, going over, looking at the pages, make sure everything is okay. But what this business has done for me is give me the opportunity to do what I want thereafter. I have a lot of people ask me, so, well, if you were doing this again, you were starting over again now, what would you do? And I'm very fortunate. And I got most of the things right. And there's really not a lot I would change. However, I would spend more time planning and laying out the entire business other than just the first couple of products. I literally created my business to be able to be sold at some point. And I think you should consider doing that as well, because it doesn't really take any time or effort to plan that way. It's just a different way of looking at it. And when I say spend more time planning, what I would do is I would just truly make sure that you have your market and your product right. Because of all the coaching I do, I see 2 types of people. People who are good process followers, they get wonderful pictures, they write wonderful copy, they do all the things, the steps that they're supposed to do, but yet they picked a product that they think they can get in and go, and it's too competitive where they are at the beginning stage. Remember I said earlier, you want to start out with low-hanging fruit and try and do $1,000 a month product, but yet some people, despite my best suggestions, they'll try and start out in supplements or something, and they'll try and make that $50,000 a month. And what they don't really understand is they don't have the skill or the knowledge or the experience at that point to be able to go for products like that. But I understand and appreciate the gall that they have. It's kind of like the old joke about the bank robber. So, well, why'd you rob the bank? Well, that's where the money is. So, if you've got the gall to go for big products, I think that's wonderful. However, I think it's better that you find products where you can fully understand the market and you're really looking for that Goldilocks product. That Goldilocks product is one that has enough volume to make it worthwhile for you, but yet small enough or less enough competition where you're not going to get killed. So you've got to find that middle ground. And if that's $700 a month for a product and you have 12 of those, that's still 10 grand a month. And it's still 100 grand a year, more than that actually. So again, there's lots of ways to do this. And again, if you want to try and go get the proverbial home run, fine. But you can win this game by hitting a lot of singles and having a lot of small products, because once you know how to do that, then I think you're okay. Because when you do go through the learning curve and continue to release new products, you're not always fighting off competition. You're flying under the radar, and it's easy to do. And then once you know how to do it, you just continue to rinse, wash, and repeat. People ask about dealing with Chinese suppliers. They seem to have a little bit of anxiety or nervousness in dealing with them. And one of the things I would say is that dealing with a Chinese supplier is no different than dealing with a supplier in your own country. They will all speak English, and it'll be at various degrees, and some of them will surprise you at how well they speak English. What you'll have to find is you need to use colloquialisms or any other kinds of expressions, and you'll need to dumb down your words and not do jokes and things like that because they won't get that. But just imagine you're talking to a 5 or 6-year-old. They understand English really, really well, and you can certainly communicate with them. And as long as you understand what they're doing and they understand what you're doing, you're fine. So for me, that has been a pleasant surprise of they're not any different dealing with than your own country suppliers. As far as payment goes, most will take PayPal, not all, but it makes it pretty easy to get money back and forth that way. You can do wire transfers. You can do all different types of things. So that's not an issue there. There are a certain amount of people who believe that every Chinese supplier is out there to, I don't know how many things how might I not get scammed? Well, I don't know what that really has to do with Chinese people, but I find their culture to be very, very honest. Quite frankly, I'm more concerned about Americans. So in that regard, they have a long-term interest in dealing with you. They want to see you be successful. So could it happen? Yeah, it could happen anywhere, any group, but the fraction that happened is far, 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 far less than 1%. So don't get all worked up with that. One of the ways to be able to communicate with them now is some Skype translations. I don't know if those of you are familiar with that or not, but Skype has just introduced something to where if I'm speaking in English, it will do closed captioning on the bottom of the screen in Chinese. And if they're speaking in Chinese, I'll see English written across the bottom of my screen. What a wonderful idea that is. So, I don't think the Star Trek translators are close yet, but this is certainly a step in the right direction. But if there's anything that I would suggest to you as far as dealing with a Chinese supplier, it's no different than dealing with anything else. And it's a process. It's something you can learn, and you'll just forget they're Chinese when you're dealing with them after a while. A lot of people think, gosh, there's so many people selling products. What am I going to do? Well, for every Amazon seller coming in, I think there's probably 100 or 200 new buyers coming in. I don't know if most of us here, if we're interested in Amazon, we're probably at the beginning of the curve. But I'll give you, for instance, I obviously as a buyer have been buying on Amazon for quite a bit. My wife, bless her heart, she's really not much into the internet. And I keep telling her, why do you not just buy stuff online? She goes out and runs her errands just like they have for the last 38,000 different generations. And it's funny, she actually got me to go to a mall here earlier this week. And I was like, the last thing I want to do is go to a mall in December. And anyway, she forced me to go, and I went, and I was pouting and whining the whole time. But anyway, I was sitting there on the bench like old men do at the mall, watching everybody go by and just thinking how many people were going to be there. And it wasn't a ghost town, but it certainly wasn't like when I had malls or business in malls back in the 90s. It was a fraction. It was like a normal day. And here it is, the middle of December. So the reality of it is people are now shopping online. And for every person who comes on as a seller, there's a bunch of them like my wife who are eventually going to come back in and buy things online. So I think online is certainly the place to be. As far as competition goes, I think it's funny as I watch certain sellers go through certain things, even competitors of my own products. Most of them are drug addicts. What? Huh? What does that mean? Well, I think in reality, most of them are on the most powerful drug in the world, which is called opium. They sit there, they get their product, they get it listed, they get it launched, and then all of a sudden they sit there and they hope that it does well. They refresh their screen, keep hitting F5 every 2.6 seconds. And then they're just looking to see what their sales are going to do, and that's the most that they're going to do. In a short time, they will fall out. There is no business on the planet where you just launch a product and then expect it to continue on forever and forever and forever. Launching your product is your first step. Most people will fall out at that stage because they simply just don't want to do anymore. If you continue to do some marketing, continue to do some reviews, you will beat probably 80% of your competition just by that. And then as you keep going and over time and continue to tweak and test and add other products and continue to build your business, you will bypass all but other the 5% of true competition. And that's really who you're dealing with. And you got to remember, this is a marathon and it's not a sprint. So you got to think of this in terms of you're launching brands, you're launching a business, You're not just throwing a product up against the wall and see if it sticks and hope you make a little bit of money each month. You got to think of this as a long-term viable asset you're building. And as far as the competition and everything else in this, is that this is beatable competition. I like to think of it, and my mindset is that competition makes me better. You wonder where McDonald's would be right now if it weren't for Burger King and Wendy's. You think about Ford and Chevy or Mac and PC, all of those types of things. They make each other better, and it strives and they strive to innovate. And I think you should think of your business in those types of terms. But if you think there's too much competition, then this is probably not the right business for you. If you were trying to go through this, what mistakes would you avoid? And the mistakes I see most people making are what I call mental mistakes, mindset mistakes, where they go in, they don't have their expectations match up the right way, and it's really a long way from reality. They go through this where they try and literally launch the perfect product at an unreasonable price. And again, that's something that you hear people say sometimes, well, I'm a perfectionist. Well, that's great if you're an employee and you're going into an interview. But in the real world, that just means you can't get anything done and finalized, because there is no perfect product. There is no 100% of anything. So you've got to accept that. I mean, you got to look at cars, for instance. Could Toyota make a car that went 500,000 miles? I'm sure they could. But would you want to pay for it? Probably not. So I think the perfect product is a product that meets the quality expectations at a certain price. And to me, that's what perfection is. This is not going to be easy. Nothing is ever easy. But I think the question is it doable? And I think the next question for you is it doable for you? And if you think that it is, then you got a really, really good shot at being successful if you will go in and do the work. I see a lot of people just expect to slap something together, throw it up there, and, well, how come I'm not making any money? Well, they didn't put any effort into it. They're not being persistent. They're not being any marketing. This is hard. I imagine what you're doing now is hard. However, it's very, very doable. So the reality of this, and that's why I've got in there about expecting guarantees, and it's just, this is not, you're not an employee. You got to get into the right mindset. But the biggest thing I see is that people just don't try hard enough to make your life better. People who have great lives have paid the price. I don't mean money. I mean, they paid the price in effort and persistence and tenacity and all of those things, because this is still a relatively easy process to get a product, find a product, get it listed, and make sales. But if you have the right mindset, that's where you'll turn it into a business. But that's probably the biggest mistakes that I see, and hopefully you can avoid those. What I think is coming up in the next year, I am convinced we are still in the very, very beginning stages of where Amazon's going to be, because still at this point, only 10% of sales in the United States anyway are done online. It's probably comparable to that in other countries, but whatever it is, it's still a very, very small percentage. And obviously not all of it ever will be. But you can't pick up the paper and see that Amazon's not doing something with drones. Or even a day or two ago, I saw something where Amazon now is going to try and control all of their own shipping through their own trucks and things like that. So Amazon is the place to be right now, and it can only get better. So I don't ever think that I've been in a stage of an industry that is on the upside as much as Amazon. Where in specific, I think they're going to see a tremendous amount of growth is overseas. Amazon continues to make the process easier. So if I have an account in the United States and I'm selling items, I can now sell those items fairly easily by shipping them to the UK and selling them all throughout Europe. I can send them to Japan and sell them in Asia. I can send them and sell them in multiple markets. And if you think about that for a second, if you already have your product, you know that it's selling, you got pictures, you got good copy, why not just send it to some of the other markets? Because the reality of it is most markets are very, very similar. You know, if you have something that's going to sell in the United States, it's probably going to sell in the UK. If you're selling in the UK, it's probably going to sell in the US, probably sell in Japan. And the thing about that is that what a wonderful way to literally double your business. Chinese suppliers, I think, are going to continue to improve their processes. Every time I go to China, the Canton Fair, I spend some time just talking to some of the suppliers about the process, and they all want to know how to make it easier, how to get in front of more buyers, how to market their products and where's better. And I think as they kind of learn how to do this, get a little better each day, as they're now are enough, this industry is big enough for people to start teaching them how to do it. I think you're going to see a next wave of things get to be even much, much easier than what it is now. The industry is getting big enough that there's more and more services coming in to help you. And I'm not a big fan of software, and I think this is a business where you don't need all that, especially in the beginning. However, as the industry continues to grow, it will continue to get easier as these services come in and continue to get better. So I don't think you can be in a better place than where you are right now. So another reason, I think, if you were deciding between this and something else, I think this is a good place to be. So I don't know why you're here and why you wanted to come to this webinar, because between this and all of the free training I do, you can certainly go out and get started. But maybe you're bored. Maybe you got tired of that commute that you came in on this morning, or depending on where you are this evening. Maybe you just want more time with your family, or some people just want to do this part-time. But the reality of this is certainly a, quote, real business, real product, and can be scaled into whatever size business you want, because most things you have to do the arbitrage model and whatever it is, and you're just buying a job. This you can make as big as you want. You're at a stage right now where you got some options. And I think in life you're presented with, I don't know, who knows, 2, 4, 10, 15, 20, I don't know, different times in your life where you come to the fork in the road, where you can just do nothing, as the old saying goes, that definition of insanity, or you can actually decide to take some action, because the knowledge that you have now is really not the power. It's the execution of power. If knowledge were power, I think librarians would be running the world. For the life of me, I don't know of a single librarian that's running anything. Love librarians, but they're not running the world. So it's up to you where you want to go and what you want to do at this point. You have basically two options. You can do nothing and continue doing and wanting more out of your life, or you can take some simple action and have the opportunity to change it. I always include this picture because I like the way this girl's looking at the question marks, because I think it's very normal and I think it's very natural to kind of be on the fence and have questions about what you're doing and that type of thing. And I think everybody goes through indecision. Everybody has reservations. However, it's people who fight through their anxiety and fight through and learn how to manage that in any part of life is, I think, what allows people to have the life that they want. So you can go and you can do nothing again, or you can decide to get into Amazon. If you want to make it a little bit easier, what I have put together is my FBA Head Start course. And this was designed from the ground up to basically show you everything you need to know to find products, to get them listed, to do marketing, to anything that you need. And actually over my shoulder, set things up on how to set up coupons, how to do Amazon pay-per-click marketing, anything and everything that you can think of to be able to launch your first product. There's actually 4 different modules. In the first one, we talk about finding products. We talk about where to look, what to look for, all the things that will try and help you go into that right market and product that we talked about earlier, how to deal with suppliers, how to get the packaging done, how to get everything done with private labeling, and then how to get the product to the market, the Amazon market that you're trying to do, whether that's directly from the supplier, it comes to you, any of the variations of it. We go through that as well. The next module, we talk about how to get things set up, and as we go and show you every button to hit in the Amazon dashboard and how to get your product listed. We talk about how to get photography done, all the different things that you need to help your product sell, even the copy that's important. The third one, we talk about marketing, everything from getting reviews to doing PPC campaigns to anything that can help drive traffic to your listing to help you separate from some of your other sellers. Because in reality, all this really is find a product, list a product, market a product. It's kind of like ABC 1, 2, 3. The last stage, which I think is important, and that's where I try and incorporate some of my experience in this, as far as been managing products for 2.5 decades. What to look for, how to manage, some of the tools and techniques to use, which again, as I said earlier, are not very many, but this is something we talk about, how you can understand intuitively what you're doing, and then ultimately be able to run your business in an easy enough way that you can end up and scale up. But with this, we've been doing this for a while now. We've got a tremendous amount of people in our community, and it's a good community. It's a good course, and we always seem to get lots of good compliments on it. But ultimately, what I would say to you is that if you want to do this will help you get started easier and faster. And for the nominal amount that it is, it will make the difference in at least one thing. But it's a good course, and I'm proud of it. Also coming with it, we've got some resources. So anything from any links, anything that you would need, give you access to every bit of that. We give you a discount on some of your product photography if you choose to do that. Just we hook you up with my own personal product photographer. One of the big things in this too is we have a Facebook community, and although any course can be wonderful, no course can tell you everything, and mine is no different. But what's so nice about this is we have a tremendous quantity of people in this group who, if you have a question, something that just you haven't quite figured out yet, you can post in there and then people will respond and help you out. It's a very helpful, very, very supportive group. So it's really nice in a sense that you've got somebody to call on and go from there. One of the other things that I don't want to promise we will do forever, but we do at least right now, is with the same group, we actually even have a review group. So I put together a process, almost a marketing co-op, to where people in the community review each other's products. And it's part of the course. It's free. And if you were to go out and find that on the open market, that could be as much as $1,000, if not more, just to have somebody review your product and the quantity of people we have who are going to review. You can be able to get well over 100 reviews on your U.S. products, and we actually have a review group in the U.K. as well, which I can't remember the total quantity of that, but it's somewhere around 50 or 60 people. So enough to get your products pretty quickly up to the first page in a lot of cases. So that itself is more than even just the cost of the course, but a nice feature. And to my knowledge, I don't know anybody else who's doing that. Group coaching calls. We have webinars from time to time where you can come in and ask me anything you like. And then, too, as Amazon changes, we will put updates in the course. So you can get free lifetime updates of that. If you're unsure about this, I'll take all the risk away from you and give you a 30-day money-back guarantee with no questions asked. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward there. Very, very, very few people use that, but if you do want it, it is there. Well, a lot of courses in here. If you're not sure, you don't know what this costs, there's a course out there called Amazing Selling Machine, and they actually started all of this. Right now, they've taken their course from $3,500 all the way up to $6,000. So, and if you think for that, that's a lot of money. I mean, in my first business, in 1989 dollars, I paid $150,000 to make 50 is what I hoped. Well, that's like about 300 and 100 today. So $6,000 is nothing to be able to make a six-figure business. However, all of these things are digital, so there's no need to charge that much. I would rather you take that money and put it towards an extra product or two and be able to maybe do some extra marketing. So my course is significantly less than their $6,000 course, and it's because I'm not an internet marketer. I'm an Amazon seller, so I don't need to charge $6,000 for that. I do appreciate their call and doing it, but this thing is excessive. So I also wanted to be able to put together a community of like-minded sellers so I could be part of a review group and be around people who were similar. So that's a little bit of my motivation and different things of why I price things and the way I do, and significantly less than the $6,000. When you get into the course, you got two options. You can go in as a VIP member, or you can go in as a Prime or VIP Plus member. And both sessions, both options will include all the video training modules. And by the way, the course is all video. It shows you how to do things step by step. You get all the outsourcing and resources guide that we talked about, admission to the Facebook group, the discounts on photography, the access to the live group coaching calls, and then the course updates. The only difference is that's everything that's in the VIP. In the Prime/VIP Plus membership, there's a 30-minute one-on-one business phone call review, or Skype if you're outside the United States, where we'll go in and we'll literally talk about anything that has to do with your particular business. We'll look at your sales page. We'll look at your product. If you haven't gotten a product yet, we'll help you compare between different products. Basically, anything that you want to do having to do with your particular Amazon business. I do a lot of coaching, and it's significantly more than what I do this as a part of this scenario. So with that said, that's the difference between the two. And if you want to learn more about the course, I certainly would love to have you in. You simply go to FBAHeadStart.com. I certainly welcome you into the community whenever you're ready to come in. So what let's do now, let's go in and let's just see if we can take some questions. I think you'll probably see me clicking around on the screen because I've got a question thing here. So if anybody has a question and they want to type that in, we'll see if we can take that. I know it takes people a little bit of time to type and get going. I'm looking at this picture, and it's funny. I guess you can tell how old somebody is by the Batman that they followed and whatever else. I guess I grew up when Adam West and the campy Batman stuff came around. But I always liked this particular version of the Riddler. Frank Gorshin was always funny to me. All right, got a couple questions starting to come in now. What do you think about the current economy and geopolitical atmosphere in regard to Amazon? That's a question by Caroline. And I think I think there's always a lot of huffing and puffing, but I think when economies are connected by trade, I think they can only get better. So I don't think that really has a factor right now. We live in a time because of social media. I think things are going on. Things have always been going on. I always think of that song by Billy Joel about "We didn't start the fire." But actually, Caroline, I was trained as an economist, and I did a lot of emerging market research back in the day. And I'm just convinced right now that I think we're about in an industrial revolution type breakthrough, is that we have just scratched the surfaces on how good things can be. And I really think that it's going to come down to Amazon or Amazon Alex and Alibaba, and who knows, maybe Alibaba beats out Amazon in the long run. Who knows? But I don't worry about way down the road. I worry about now. So I think we're good. Okay. Nair says, when do you start to private label? Right after your samples sell? Well, I think in this too is I never worried about selling samples. I mean, I'm looking at it as I'm going the simple process as I'm determining my market, the product I want to do. I find the supplier, find out what's involved in private labeling. If I want a sample, it's sent to me. If not, I have them show pictures, and then I send it to Amazon, and then start selling it. So that's the simple process for me. They are. Monica has a question. Says, I'm looking into handmade items this coming year. Do you think handmade products are making a comeback? Monica, I think that there's a place on handmade items. I'm not sure Amazon is the perfect venue for them. The only concern I would have is that usually when you get into handmade items, it's usually some small organization. It's very hard for them to keep up with demand. So that is tough. But I think too, if you want to do something with handmade, I think Etsy might be a better format for handmade items. Okay, Rahim says, again, I hope I probably mangled that, so my apologies. I think everybody deserves to have their name pronounced properly. So if you've been on any webinars with me, you know I really try hard, but if your name's not Bob or Sam or something, I just struggle with it, so please forgive me. Is it a good idea to start business in Amazon in India? If you're there, I think it's fine. The reality of it is you can sell in any Amazon market you want, from any particular country. I mean, we have a lot of people who live in the UK and sell through Europe and also sell here in the United States. So India is certainly a ton of people there. The reality of it is the middle class, the demographics of India are not as good as some other countries, but it's a good way maybe to test items, to get things started, to go through the process. I think you can learn it that way. It seems like everybody wants to come to the United States, and that's fine, but I don't think it's necessary that you have to do that. All right. Sean says, can you explain a bit about creating a brand with numerous products versus individual items that don't have anything to do with each other? Is it okay to experiment with non-relating products until you find your niche? Sure it is, Sean. There's no right or wrong way to do any of this. If you come across a product that would make a good Amazon product, I think that's fine. I really don't think necessarily people look at I don't think they click on the store name and then see all the other products you have. If they do, it's a small portion of people. If it's a good product, it's good enough to stand on its own. But where having a brand, I really think, comes in is twofold. One, if you're able to have multiple items within the same category, and I'm looking on my desk now and I see a stapler, and I don't know. Okay, I'm also looking at a calculator. If I had a stapler company and I decided to launch a calculator, and that's not, I'm just as best I can do off the top of my head, I would be able to run a promotion on the stapler page and say, okay, buy my stapler and get 10% off of my 15%, whatever number you want, off of my calculator. And you're going to see increased sales. You're also going to get usually the also bought with space because you have multiple products. And when you have multiple products in the same brand, you're going to see about a 20% sales increase right off the top. The other factor in that is if you have an established brand, if you do want to sell your business down the road, it makes it much, much more saleable than if you had a hodgepodge of items. So again, no right or wrong way. You could certainly have a brand of items if you wanted, Sean, and then you also could have another account to where you had your hodgepodge type of items. Because I mean, just in just researching around, I come across products all the time that are individual products like that. And I don't pursue them because I don't want to do them. But if somebody wanted to do that, I think that would be a fine strategy. Okay, Monica says, for packaging, is China cheaper than U.S. companies when it comes to packaging. Typically, Monica, these companies know that you're private labeling. That's how they're set up. And that's how they're marketing to you as a seller of their products. So they will have, in many cases, an in-house art department. So really, you can be as simple or as complex if you want. In some cases, all you need to do is send them like a JPEG or a PNG version of your logo, and that can be applied to the packaging or the item itself. The other thing that you can do is if you want to get more elaborate and have somebody design really, really nice packaging, they'll do that, and they have the capacity to print or make or create whatever packaging that you want. That's usually part of it. Now, of course, too, the more elaborate and the more things you do, the higher the cost per item. But what I have found is when I looked into that, Monica, is that it's more expensive here in the United States to have packaging done than it is there. You might want to have your design done, or UK or Australia, wherever you're from, New Zealand, wherever. I think I'm sure would be the same. But you might want to have your design done here if you want, and then just send things over. But I just found it's cheaper there too, because again, this is a full service type of scenario to where if you find that product you wanted, where you really can help differentiate yourself is packaging. And one of the mistakes that I guess I probably should have listed earlier is I don't see people putting enough effort into their packaging. And it's a way to make you stand out. It's a way to make you look more of a premium product, and ultimately you can charge more that way. We talked about iPhones earlier. For those of you last time you got a phone, and I'm sure that the Android phones are the same way, but the box is really nice. And I think it's funny. I buy my wife jewelry, and I think, bless her heart, she's got every box that I ever gave her. I'm thinking it's a box, but it's a nice box, and she keeps it. So I think if you're doing a nice item, the box adds value to it, and will also set the tone of helping you get better reviews. Marcus says, what about marketing on Instagram or Pinterest? I think all of those things are fine, whether it be YouTube or Facebook, anything else that you can do, Marcus. If you've got a particular skill set where you're really good in those formats, then I think it's fine. What I do think, though, is that if you get the right market, you get the right product, you get good packaging, you get good pictures, good copy, and you do PPC and all of those things, you're going to come pretty close to optimizing and maximizing that particular product. For the time and effort that you put in all of these external things, you might be just as well advised to go find another product and put the money there. So again, that's an equation you have to work out as an actual individual seller, in that where's your best use of your time and money. And if you think you can do that, then that's fine. And I think external marketing is fine, but it's hard. And it's doable, and I've made money doing it. But I think too, it's just hard, and it's something else you've got to keep up and manage. To where I just think it's easier just to continue doing other products. But anything you can find that works, I think it's our responsibility as sellers to try it and keep testing. And because you never know, I go to sleep every night, put my head on the pillow, thinking there's some formula out there, some magic way that I just haven't found it. And I think you almost got to have that mindset as much as anything. What Karen says, what selling price range do you suggest? One of the things that it seems like everybody who comes into Amazon wants to have for lack of a better word, a sales price in the $10 to $15 range. And that's something because I guess they can get enough quantity of items at a very inexpensive price, which creates literally more competition at that particular level. Karen, if I'm doing our first item, I think that's okay. But as you get more experienced and more knowledgeable, I think it's better to go $20 and above. And the more you can go, the better. Because if you can get up to items that are $50, $60, $70, $80, you're not going to have the same quantity of sales, but what you're going to have is more total dollars. And everybody gets way caught up in basic sales rank and quantity of units per day. The only number that really matters is what's your daily profit. And that can come from less sales, higher profits. It can come from lots of sales and less profit. But ultimately, whatever it is, I think you don't want to do anything less than that $12, $13, simply because you want to make sure you have enough margin left over in every sale to be able to do some promotion if you choose, whether that's Amazon PPC or some of the things like Marcus was just talking about on Instagram or other. Okay, Karen also says she spotted an opportunity for a new product that should sell really well but still needs to be created. Should be simple to make. Does Amazon help with new product development? Well, I'm not really sure what you mean by help with new product development there, Karen, but that's really all of your for lack of a better word, responsibility to do as a seller is to prepare it, because really all Amazon is a listing service, right? They create the format, the forum for you to be able to sell. As long as it doesn't violate anything legally or patent or that kind of stuff, they don't really care, because they obviously want you to be able to sell it, because they make a percentage on everything you sell. But the process is that's kind of what we teach in the course, is to how to take you through that particular process and what to look for in some of the specifics. Okay, Rahim says, if I do private label my product, is there any procedure to register my brand on Amazon.com? Actually, Rahim, it's what's called the brand registry, and that is basically says that's your brand on Amazon. The next step in that is really, and that will not give you a lot of, that's an Amazon only type of scenario. What the next step of that, and what I would encourage you to do, is take a look at getting your products trademarked after you get up and running, because that's really not a very expensive process anymore. And what that does is that keeps somebody else from copying your products and also trying to sell them on Amazon. So that would be step one. I would do the brand registry, and basically step two, I'd take a look at getting your brand trademarked. Nathan says, will you be running a workshop in the UK? Nathan, I don't have any plans to do that at this point. It's a long haul for me to get over there and be able to do that. Tremendous expense, and be able to set it up just from the travel and all the different things. But I love going to England, and actually even like warm beer. So I have a good time every time I go there. I can't understand the English. It takes me a couple of days to get tuned into it. And all you folks over there use completely different words, so I kind of feel lost when I'm over there. But I very much would like to. Nathan, and as hard as it is to travel nowadays, and as good as digital things are, I may do some kind of digital type of thing in the future, and then that way people can come in and won't have to have the expense and travel. Though the next thing I do have coming up is I do have, for anybody who might be interested, actually I'm taking another group of people to China here for the next Canton Fair in April. We'll be doing some workshops there, but unfortunately nothing planned in the UK. Sean says, thank you. Well, Sean, thank you for being here. Okay, Raheem has another question. It says, kind of let me know how to ship the product to Amazon FBA. I mean, do I need to pay shipping charge to supplier to ship my product from China to USA? Does that charge paid? Okay, I think it's basically just talking about the process of getting the product to Amazon. If you are inside the United States, or let's say if you're in Europe and you're selling there, whatever country you're selling, you can have the product shipped directly to you. You can open a few, take a look, and make sure the quality is what you want, and then ship it directly to Amazon. I have one product. I think it's like 18 by 18 by 24, and it's like 50 pounds. Once I get it and check it and send it to Amazon, it's like $8. Amazon has incredibly discounted rates with the shipping company, so it's really not expensive to do. If you live outside the United States and you just want to have it, we'll use that as an example, and that's your market. And I believe you said earlier you lived in India, but if you want to, say, have an item in China shipped here, the process is very simple in a sense that when you're setting the product up in your Amazon dashboard, Amazon will tell you where to send it, what warehouses to send it. And then you forward that information to the Chinese supplier. And then when all the shipping and everything is being done, then they send that directly to Amazon, and you don't have to touch it at all. So it's a pretty simple process, and they have accounted for that, because even if you want to look at it at the beginning and you eventually want to have your orders go directly to Amazon, that's a good way to do it. Okay. Ty says, for my first product, do I need to send less or more stock to Amazon? Well, I think you want to send enough stock to be able to cover any promotions that you do, and then cover any estimated sales until you can get reordered. So I think ultimately what it comes down to is, before you agree on a product, you need to know what the delivery time is, or the production time and shipping time, to get that to you. Because what can happen is, if it takes a long time to do, you can either be out of stock, or either if you have to order way too much because it takes so long, you can get into some inventory issues. And that's a little bit beyond the scope of what we're doing here. But I think ultimately the answer to that, Ty, is to be able just to make sure. I would order more on the first one, just because you don't know. Part of your first month or 2 or 3 is really gathering information so you can ultimately manage your business. Because remember, we said earlier, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Because ultimately you're just trying to get sales in the beginning. You can come back and manage your business and get higher profit and profit numbers as time goes on. Okay, Brittany has a question here. Says, hi, Mark. I found out you have to get permission in order to sell on Amazon in most of the categories. They also require you to provide your website. So that mean if you have to start a company to order, is there any possibility? I think really what you're talking about, Brittany, is what are called gated categories. I think jewelry and clothing and some of those categories are what's called gated categories. Those are only a handful of the categories on Amazon, and I don't know the percentage, but I'm guessing 90% of categories, 90% plus maybe, are not gated. You don't have to get any type of approval or permission. Well, I am not a big fan of starting out doing gated categories because it's one other step in the process that you have to do, and it's one thing that can slow you down or derail you from getting forward. And there is no guarantee you're going to get approved. It is a process. It's not terribly complicated. I think you got to get some. I'm not even really sure I know, because that's something I don't have any interest in doing personally. So I haven't really looked into that. But I know we've got a lot of people in our community who have done that on some multiple products as they've gotten more experienced, and they can certainly help you through the process. I just don't want to sit here and tell you something wrong, because I have a saying that I do at my seminars and different things, is that the simpler I am or the dumber I get, the more money I make. I just think it's just human nature. It's smart people want to overcomplicate things. And every time you add another step to the process, that's something else that can break down and go wrong. The simpler you keep this, I think the more likely you are to make money and have a good and viable business. But again, just gated categories, and just find out some information there, Brittany. That sounds like that's the answer to what you're asking. Okay, Monica says, thank you. Thank you, Monica. Sean says, if you run out of inventory on your private label product, does all the work you do on reviews and ranking get lost if you have no inventory for a couple of weeks? I know it takes a while for shipments to come in from overseas. Well, Sean, the reality of it is if your product goes out of stock, Amazon will not show your item on the page for any of the keywords that somebody would search under. And the way the listing ranks, the way the listing works, is it's based on your quantity of sales, which they call your velocity, your conversion rate, which is the amount of people who see it versus buy it, and then your quality and quantity of reviews. So when you're not listed, you're obviously not getting any sales. Your sales velocity and your conversion rate would stay the same, and your views are going to stay the same. And they take an average of that over a period of time to determine listings. So if you're out of stock, your listings are probably going to drop. So ideally, we got a lot of people in the forum now who, despite telling them what they were going to do, they wouldn't invest in their business, and they were penny wise and pound foolish. And some of them are starting to run out here in the Christmas season. And I feel bad for them. But, again, this is something you can't nickel and dime, because you got to be willing to, they've cost themselves a lot of money because they wouldn't spend $500. They probably cost themselves $5,000. So again, in the beginning, if you feel good about your product and whatever else, and you think that you're gonna run out, just get some more. It's not like this is something you're probably not going to sell over the long run. Brittany says, sorry, I meant to say they may decline you. Well, I don't, to my knowledge, Brittany, I don't think they're going to decline a seller for any reason. I never heard of that. Maybe there is something to that, but as long as you got a credit card and a phone number and a bank account, there shouldn't be any issues there. Okay, Ryan has a question. It says, what do you think about selling your own brand product without having your brand name printed on the product? This has reduced the cost in the first order. Ryan, there are people who do that and they get away with it, but when you introduce a product like that, you're not having anything unique, and anybody can find that same supplier and take your listing because you haven't private labeled it, you haven't protected it. And again, I understand the concept of that, and it makes sense on paper, and people do it. If it works, it's fine. I mean, that's your call to do. I'm just not a fan of that, because I think it's like dabbing a toe in the water versus jumping in the pool. And I'm just not a fan. I'm just rather jump in the pool. So I am not a fan of that concept. However, I'm not here to say don't do it. That's your call to make as a seller, but that's my 2 cents worth for what that's worth. The approval process, as far as the accounts, Brittany, would be almost instantly. For gated categories, it could take several days. Hey, Nathan, I tell you what, I do a UK workshop if you buy all the beer. How about that? And you got to make it cold. Last time I was in England, Nathan, I walked up to the bar, and And I ordered a beer. I was polite as I could be. The bartender looked at me, says, American? I said, yes. He says, I guess you want that cold. I said, yes, please. He turned around under his breath, says, bloody Yank. It's like, man, I'm trying to be nice here. But anyway, I don't think he just cared much for me, but that's okay. Monica says, I actually have one product that we bought this year. I got 100 pieces. I didn't sell it yet because we did not have the right packaging. My question is, if we finally get everything set up, when will our listing get picked up and finally on Amazon? How long did it take for your listing to start making sales? Monica, I was having sales the first couple of days I had it listed. So, again, you basically turn on your listing when you create it. If you've got it and you've got products there and it's in stock in Amazon, they'll show it on the page. It might be on the 9th page, it might be, whatever it is, but they'll show it and it'll be available on Amazon for sale as soon as you turn it on. Karen says, if you live in the UK or Ireland, should we start in the UK rather than the USA? Karen, that's what I call seller's choice. If it were me and I lived there, I would start in the UK. It's much easier to deal with all the other things in your own country than go through the extra step of sending it to the United States. I've got a lot of members from the UK, and some sell there, some sell here, some sell in both. But I don't think there's any right or wrong way. I mean, I think what you'll find there is that the volumes are not as much, but the competition is not anywhere near as much. So you could come in and don't need anywhere near as many reviews to get started there. If I lived there, that's what I would do. Okay, Raheem says, should I start my first sale with small stock, 50 pieces, or huge stock, 500 pieces? Do I need to place an order supplier before I get? Well, I mean, in all this, Raheem, again, that comes back to where you got to chart out what you think your estimated sales are going to be. If you want to just do 50 pieces and not do any promotions and whatever else, then, it just depends on the product that you're doing. I mean, this is something that I understand budgets, I understand financial limitations, but at the same time, and I guess when I do this webinar the next time, I'll add to the mistakes people make is that they don't. Yeah, I started with $400, but I got lucky too because my supplier would also get things to me within 10 days. And that's production and shipping and everything else. So I didn't have to order a lot. I was able to order very, very quickly. The typical supplier is somewhere around 3 to 4 weeks in getting things manufactured and shipping time. You just got to have enough to cover whatever you're doing. Nathan says, do you only need an IBAN number to sell in the U.S.? Really, all you need is an EIN number, and sometimes for non-U.S. citizens, Amazon will ask for this and sometimes not, and an EIN number is an employment identification number, and really that's not so much an Amazon number as it is a tax number because you're supposed to pay taxes on profit that you make in the United States, but in reality, I'm guessing 99% of sellers don't do that who are non-U.S. citizens. So that EIN number is what would identify you for tax purposes. Brittany says, thank you for your response, Mark. What kind of product would you recommend to start selling with? Well, Brittany, that's the beauty of you being self-employed. You get to pick that out all by yourself. Caroline says, is it necessary to have a website? If you want to be brand registered, it is. If you don't, it is not. Nathan says, what countries do you need an IBAN number for the tax? Nathan, I'm not sure what an IBAN number is. I'm guessing that's some kind of European tax something. So since I don't, not a legal guy, not a tax guy, I don't know the answer to that. And I don't want to tell you something that's wrong. Okay. Getting a few questions here about niches and products. And folks, I can't pick that for you. That's something you got to do on your own. Karen says, do you suggest a minimum profit margin on total cost, including FBA fees? I like somewhere around 50%. I think 40% is fine. And I don't get, I want to make sure there's enough to cover my costs and any advertising, particularly PPC that I do. Karen, and for everybody here, I don't know if you have gotten it or not, but if you haven't, you can go to markscottadams.com/free-training. There's a product checklist on there that talks about that particular question and some others. Okay, Karen says, this is great Q&A. Thank you. Well, again, thank you, Karen, and everybody else for being here. Raheem says, is it important to have a Payoneer account to start a business if you live in the United Arab Immigrants? Well, in that Payoneer, there are what's called approved countries, and I don't know if your country, Raheem, is one of the approved countries or not. It all depends on their banking, because they've got to be able to send that money to you from electronic transfer, the profit from your sales that they send to you, and most countries are, most English speaking countries are. If you're in one of the countries that is not, then go to Payoneer, and they have things where you can set up a U.S. banking account, credit card. I'm not all that familiar with them, and I think there have been some changes lately, but that's probably the place to be able to do that. And again, if you're not in an approved country, that's one more step you have to go through, but many people do that and still have good and thriving businesses. Okay. PPC means pay per click. If you go in and look at any listing on Amazon, you'll see something. It might be on the very top line, it might be on the right column, it might be on the bottom. It will say sponsored right there on their picture somewhere. That means that as a seller, I paid to have my product shown there. And the way that works is that every time somebody clicks on it, I pay a certain amount for that click. And I don't pay anything to show it unless somebody clicks. So most pay-per-click costs are anywhere from a few cents up to several dollars. Most are under $1. So if you're going to have, say, a $10 budget and you're counting on 20 clicks, for instance, you want to make sure that your sales are enough to pay for the profit from your sales are enough to pay for your advertising. But that's what PPC is. Okay. Nathan says IBAN, it stands for International Bank Account Number. So, I didn't know that, so I learned something there. I just assume everything is tax and bureaucratic stuff. But all this, too, is that I would imagine use that if you do some wire transfers as well. It says great webinar, so thank you for that, Nathan. Raheem says, thanks a lot. I wish you conduct second webinar very soon. Well, Raheem, that's kind of what the course is for, bud. Do you avoid products that have too many reviews, and how many is too many? And that's another thing that's on that product checklist, Karen. I would encourage you to download and take a look at that. I'm really looking to avoid something. If the top 2 or 3 have a lot, I really don't care, because I'm okay at maybe spot 6 or 7 or 8 on the page, because there's still money to be made there. So, several hundred. I mean, if you're part of a review group and you're aggressive as a seller, you ought to be able to get a couple hundred reviews with a reasonable amount of effort. And still, where the competitive levels are in the United States, that's something that you're going to be upper middle page of the first page if you've got that quantity of reviews. But I would rather have something where most of the items on the page are less than 100. All right, Marcus says, thanks, Mark. Nice webinar. Well, again, folks, I mean, that looks like the last question. Unless somebody, and I'll just chat here and babble on for a second or two. If somebody does have any more questions they want to ask, if not, we'll see if we can kind of close down for the day. But Marcus says, thanks. Nice webinar. Thank you, Marcus. Ty says, thank you, Mark. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, but I do mean well there. So those of you here, if you want to go into this, I hope this was helpful and give you a little bit of insight. This is a very doable thing. It is nothing. It is not easy. Nothing is. But I encourage you to go to FBA Head Start. Raheem is saying, do you offer any promotion on your course fees? And I never do, Raheem, simply because the course is so inexpensive already, and it's way underpriced for what it is. But again, I'm not trying to, I'm trying to bring people in the community, and I'm trying to once we have quantity and numbers in our community, we can be so much more than even the support group and co-op that we are. And I got a lot of ideas and things I'm working on, and that's another reason it's the price we're doing there. But very, very inexpensive, and I never do discounts off of that. And my whole thought is it's great to ask and want to do all that stuff, but if I got to sit here and entice you to do it by a certain percentage or certain something, that's not the reason you do this. You do it because it's good information and it'll pay for itself many, 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 many times over. All right. Neil says, thanks, Mark. Looking forward to the China trip. I as well, Neil. Monica says, the reason we price better, the other similar courses out there. I just started module 2. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jim. Raheem says, thanks a lot for sharing knowledge. Soon I wish to join your course. Well, Raheem will certainly welcome you when you're ready. Off of that. So, folks, that looks like that's it. Hey, I got Ty's name right. He says, I mentioned my name right. I'm getting better at this. Now, the when you get into Oriental names, I've lost, and I get into Arabic names, I get lost, but I mean well. Karen has one last question. We'll take this as the last question. What about sourcing agents? Karen, I think that's something that is more of an advanced topic for somebody who is brand new. I think if you're going to go through this, Alibaba is where you're going to start. And of course, that's a database of where all the suppliers are. I think really the next step is to go on a China trip. We got a few people here, Neil and a couple others who are going to China with us. And once you're there, you're going to find cheaper prices because you've flown halfway around the world to see them. You get to see them face to face. That's your next step. And then probably the step after that is for you to consider sourcing agents. Where I am in my business, I'm actually doing some looking at that right now because, again, that's not a low budget scenario. You're going to have to pay the sourcing agent. But the theory is that they can find suppliers and different things that you really want and fit you better and the pricing's better, then it's certainly well worth the investment. But my simple thought is to make sure you're in the business a while before you consider that. Okay, Caroline says, thanks again. You're awesome. Well, gosh, thank you, Caroline. Happy holidays. It's always fun to have such good positive feedback. I appreciate that. All right, everybody's getting so many good compliments. I thank all of you here. So with that said, it looks like that's all of the questions. Happy holidays, and thank you all who are writing in such kind comments. I do appreciate it when people write such kind things because we're all human, and behind computer screens, we need that human contact. So I truly appreciate that. And I wish all of you happy holidays and the best of luck. And as our Riddler friend would say here, see you the same, what would he say? He would say, see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. See you, everybody. Thank you much.